On today's Toy Spot, we're having a look at the new Funko Alien ReAction figures. We're having a look today at the Soul Survivor Ripley. This is for actually ages 17 and up. This is an adult collectible. It's not a toy. And as Spotted already mentioned with the Alien figure review, clearly this line is geared towards people of my age bracket. These are geared towards the people that grew up with the more vintage designed figures, such as your Star Wars, your masks, and the other lines of figures where you got a very simplified figure, but you got a lot of them. And sometimes even compared to the stuff that we get now, I would take some of the vintage lines any day of the week over the new property of figures. So this line is really geared towards me, is really geared towards people in, again, their 30s. It's not to say, and really Spot does not mean to take this away from younger viewers that perhaps would want to pick this up as well, but I'm just saying, like, the majority of this line is really geared towards the people in their 30s and in that age bracket. Needless to say, though, speaking of retro, loving this packaging. This packaging screams retro to me. And I hate to really use the comparison, as I probably would be using for a lot of these reviews that we're going to be looking at, but packaging-wise, and even really down to the reaction, it really looks like a Kenner-style packaging. Right down to the something with Star Wars where you had a outlined trimmed border, and then you usually had the character featured from not specifically like a media shot image of the character where they're just leaning against something. They usually take a scene out of the movie and they use that as their back card. Up at the top there's a picture of the alien, the xenomorph there, which is actually really is an interesting shape that the alien is inside. I look at this kind of looks like Cobra from G.I. Joe. I don't know if that was deliberate or if it just happens to look. I look at that, it kind of looks like the Cobra logo for me as well. On the back of the package, collect all 5 reaction figures. There's Ripley, which I might add also comes with a flamethrower. There's Kane, there's Dallas and Ash, and of course the alien. It says, relive the exciting action of Alien with authentically detailed reaction figures. Start your own collection of sturdy plastic posable figures. Each measures 3.5 to 4 inches tall. All have movable parts and are all ready for space adventures. The Alien actually is featured down below as well with glow-in-the-dark brains and also the secondary mouth. We all already kind of had a look at that. Definitely to see more, though, you can go to www.reactionfigures.com. You can also follow Funko, obviously at funko.com. You can also go to www.facebook.com/originalfunko. And don't forget to follow them over at Twitter at originalfunko as well. Spot's going to take himself a break and get this opened up. And when we come back, we're going to get a better look at Ripley. There's more heading your way, guys. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Ripley does come with one accessory, that being the flamethrower. And again, some of the things that I appreciate that Funko is doing with this line is that they know right off the bat that they are producing, if I don't drop it, they are producing these figures clearly as a retro throwback. Right down to the fact that they could have easily given this flamethrower a black color, made it more of a military look to it, but no, they decided to give it a blue color. And again, I just really love that because that shows that they are well aware of what they're producing. These figures, by no stretch of the imagination, are supposed to look like the characters. In fact, Ripley doesn't really look a lot like Ripley, and the gun really shouldn't be blue. But again, that's the whole idea of the reaction line. Ripley does hold the flamethrower. You just put it into her hand, like so. She holds the flamethrower quite well, actually. And she does also have both hands available so that you can, depending on which hand you want to put it in, you can do that as well. Taking the flamethrower off, and let's have a look at Ripley. And again, Spot's fully aware that this doesn't quite look like Ripley. It looks like a woman with curly black hair. But the whole thing with the reaction line is that they're geared as retro figures. The idea is, when you look at it, it has aspects to Ripley. It's not 100% spot on, but it's something that, looking at it, you can gauge, yes, this would be a Ripley figure that I would expect to see, in 1982, in 1984, around that kind of time frame. By a comparison, we can bring in the Xenomorph here, and you can see that the Xenomorph is quite a bit taller than Ripley, as it really should be. I mean, it's unfortunately the line. Let me just get the Xenomorph to stand properly. It's unfortunately the line where I kind of wish that I could go back in time, and I wish, because I used to go to a friend's house all the time, and he had a substantial Star Wars collection. We're talking substantial. He had all the vehicles. He had several Darth Vader cases where you open them up, and he must have had every figure at least. He had at least every figure, and then in some cases he had figures times 2. With some of the Ewoks, he had like 3 or 4 different Ewoks. He really had the kind of line that I was extremely jealous of. But I wish I could go back in time to that time period in my life, and I could have had stuff like this. As you progressively get older in life, and you start gravitating away from the idea of collecting figures, and you obviously get really far away from the idea of playing with figures. You just don't have that mindset anymore. It's unfortunately one of the things that, as you become an adult, it's one of the things you have such a tough time getting back. But I wish I could go back to my younger self and give something like this to my younger self and say, here you go. And look at the look on my face as I would have been able to have the chance to play with stuff like this. Because I know younger Spot, I probably would have not called myself that at that, however, but my younger self would immediately be thinking to myself, yes, I can bring out the Star Wars figures. I can have a story where Ripley is found by maybe the Jedi, and she warns them about the alien, and then meanwhile the alien is on board the Millennium Falcon. I would have an absolute blast. And really, again, when I look at this line, I know it's not 100% accurate. I know the sculpt isn't dead on to making it look like Ripley. But you know what? Again, that's the whole idea of it. Ripley's articulation, her head does rotate left and right. Her arms rotate all the way around. And she also has movement in her legs as well. Peg holes on the undersides of the feet. Unfortunately, she doesn't come with a display stand, but that's fine as well. Ripley, on a rating level, strictly looking at the figure as a whole and knowing what was approached when they did the reaction line, Ripley, I'm going to give her a 7. I like the inclusion of the flamethrower. I love the fact that it's also a different color than what you would expect with a flamethrower accessory. Overall, I just love this line. And I really hope that Funko will continue to produce reaction figures. I could sit for hours and probably think of some of the figures that I would love to see approached as a reaction figure. We are getting, of course, Back to the Future. We are getting a Predator. But I mean, if they ever approach, say, Tron or the A-Team or Knight Rider, I mean, really anything you could think of from the 80s, they could potentially make as reaction figures. That excites me to no end. I'm a little hard to read, yes, I understand that. Probably in this video it was a little hard to read over the gushing that I was doing. But today's Toy Spot, we're having a look at the new Funko Reaction Alien figures. We're looking today at Ripley. Stay tuned, guys. Spot's going to have the reviews of the other figures lined up for you in the next couple of videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.